50 anti-Israel protesters arrested for shutting down Senate cafeteria. The cafeteria? That's an insurrection. So they storm into the building. They've got red painted hands. Austin's legacy equals genocide. What is this in DC?
The red painted hands thing, like that symbolizes the blood of Israelis that they killed. Like that came from like Palestinians that had Israelis' blood on their hands. That's what the red is from. So I don't know what the hell they're thinking.
Nothing.
Like that's literally
they
like,
have no idea what they're talking about.
We got Jews' blood on our hands, and we're protesting.
Fighting stop.
It is insane.
That's about as far as the thoughts go.
Insane.
They're not even thinking that, dude. Look, I grew up with a lot of these protesters. They're thinking nothing. There are organizers who think certain things, but they have limited understanding. It's usually some nonprofit will have some organizers who will come and help them. There'll be donations and there'll be activists, and they'll get this money from a variety of sources, and they'll get stupid people, and they'll say, do you want to feel like you belong? And they say, please, yes, I just want purpose. And they say, then stand next to me. That's the reason. The reason why these people are there, most of these people couldn't tell you about what's going on in the world. And that's the issue I took when we were talking to that one guy, Liam. Shout out. He's a good dude. I like him.
Yeah, Cosgrove's the man.
But I asked Liam Cosgrove, like, how come you know so much about Israel but not other conflicts around the world? It's a legitimate question. I am not telling you you are not allowed to care about Israel. I am asking you why Israel and not something else. There's no answer. And it's because it is just it is a hot issue to talk about. I get it. Israel is a big issue. You are allowed. If someone said, no, you're completely right. I think what's going on in Burma is serious. Taiwan, very, very serious. I can talk to you about, the U.S. shifted its weapons production, its contracting from desert theater to water, Pacific theater weaponry. Yeah, the U.S. started ordering missiles. I am deeply concerned about the U.S. preparing war with Taiwan. Right now, though, in the news cycle, Israel seems to be taking the cake. So I've been focused on them. I think it's a fair point to make. But there are a ton of people like these activists who are deranged. And if you asked them, how many kids died in Ukraine? They'd say, I don't know. You'd say, how many kids died in Burma? Don't know. How many kids are dying over the battles in Kashmir? No idea. You literally don't know or care about anything happening in the world. Do you? Yemen? Come on. Tell me about Yemen. Nothing. Yeah, 100,000 dead in Yemen over the past, I think, 8 years. And you don't know anything about it, but you care about Israel. No, I don't believe it. It's someone who came up to them and said, do you want to care about something? Not really. Do you want to pretend like people like you? Yes, please. Okay, then do as I say and we'll pretend we like you.
I keep thinking about a guy who's there who's like, I'm here because I like her. And there's like another girl. It's fictitious, but maybe.
I'm willing to bet a lot of the guys who are there are doing it because they find some girl attractive.
That's sad, but
often
true.
And a lot of the women that are there are doing it because other people told them it was the popular thing to do.
It's easier than learning to play a musical instrument. Just to show up at the protest rally and tell the chicks that you're down with whatever the
but to be fair,
is.
Then a guy shows up to the rally with an acoustic guitar and he's like, hey girls, listen to this one. It's called My Heart Breaks for Gaza. And then he starts playing the song and then they're like, oh, you're saying socially acceptable thing. And he's like, now I'd like to talk to you about the crisis in Yemen. And they go, nah, we're not interested in that. We don't care. Nope.
I was going to say, do you guys think these kinds of protests are even worth doing?
No.
But I'm like, geez, I don't want to shut down the idea of the value of protest because like that's kind of like a world economic. They'd love to have this technocratic non-protest society.
This is all luxury protest. It's all luxury beliefs because it doesn't affect the people in the United States that are protesting the war in Gaza. This doesn't affect them. This is all them posturing and performing for people. That's all that it is. Because it doesn't unless they're actually Israeli or Palestinian or have family there, it doesn't really affect them, You know
who satirized this really well is Tom Wolfe.
What do you do?
He wrote a book and he described it called Radical Chic.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very wealthy sort of old money involved in this, and they're just doing it as like you said, like a pose, a posture, and it just becomes sort of the thing to do. In Manhattan. He was living in Manhattan, and he wrote a couple books about this. He satirized it really well.
Well, you just said that story, Ben Affleck's daughter now saying that she is in fact a he. Yeah. And many people are pointing out that all these celebrities just have like all of their kids are trans and non-binary. And it's just ultra wealthy, affluent liberals desperately trying to out virtue signal each other. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. I worked for Greenpeace. They told me that getting arrested was a badge of honor. That you can brag about it. You get arrested protesting, and then you can go to the other, like, I've been arrested before. Yeah, what for? For protesting for the planet. It's like, oh, wow, badge of honor. And no, it's all just nonsense. That's the things they tell young people who are trying to find something to do because people want to do good, and they trick you into doing bad things for them. And that's what you get with stuff like this. Now I'm wondering, are they going to be charged with insurrection? And who incited them? I think it was Joe Biden.
How far did it go? What happened?
Oh, they shut down the cafeteria. I mean, that's eating lunch is an official duty, right?
Oh, this is at the Capitol. I missed where it's at.
Yeah, it's the Capitol. Senate. It's a Senate office building where they were eating.
It's the food trespassing. I think
they said the Senate can't eat until Gaza eats.
Oh God.
But because it was nonviolent, maybe they won't hit him with trespassing charges.
It's so frustrating hearing stuff like that because like everybody's sending all kinds of aid to Gaza. If it's not getting to the people of Gaza, it's because Hamas is the government of Gaza, and they're not passing out all the stuff to the people in Gaza. Like the people of Gaza are suffering because Hamas is a bad government. Like that's why they were suffering before. Hamas took their water pipes to build rocket launchers. Like they literally are just an absolute train wreck of a government, and that's why Gaza's suffering.
But it was pretty bad before Hamas in like the 90s. It was pretty rough. They were pinned in pretty hard for a while.
I don't know enough about what Gaza was like in the 90s.
Familiar with much about how the Palestinian Liberation Organization PLO,
Not
Yasser
really.
Arafat's government treated those people and how they were?
I don't know much about the PLO.
What's that?
I don't know much about it.
To be honest, I have not studied deeply, but I think I don't know if I put all the blame on Hamas because the barricades, Israel barricading them in and controlling what gets in there is like not Hamas's fault. If they were doing it before Hamas existed, then it's not Hamas's fault.
I mean, kind of. The thing about Hamas is they decided to launch the attack that ultimately resulted in this war.
October 7th.
That's the thing about all this. Is like if you're going to blame somebody for this immediately, the first person to blame is Hamas, and they're still 100%. In control. And I think that's
an easy thing to do.
They're still holding Americans, dude. They're still they have Americans.
No love for terrorist organizations in general, except George Washington, who apparently was a terrorist according to King George.
That is. Listen, the historical way that governments have been created has been through violence, right? That's just the way that it's been. The decision by the international community that is no longer acceptable happened after World War II, and it was because of the nuclear weapon. Right, that no longer is it acceptable according to essentially the UN and the world order. There are people that violate that. When that happens, the UN condemns them, and sometimes there are wars and stuff like that. But generally, the point is because nuclear weapons exist, we can't have wars of aggression anymore. Right. So that's the end of wars of aggression. But that's how countries were created for all of human history prior to the nuclear weapon. It just got too dangerous to have industrial scale mechanical war. Like you can annihilate cities and stuff.
You see Coleman Hughes on Rogan?
I saw part of that. It was great.
He made a really great point. He said Hamas has perfected the blending of military conflict with civilian population.
Yeah.
And so this puts Israel in a position where they have two choices: either engage in a conflict where you are dealing with people who have blended themselves into the civilian population, or stop fighting. And what do? If they stop, they're basically going to declare a carte blanche for all terrorist organizations to start setting up their operations within dense civilian populations for the purpose of inhibiting anyone's ability to stop them. Or they carry on with their campaigns, which results in high civilian casualty. Now, according to Coleman, I'm not saying he's right. He said that, because Joe Rogan says 30,000 civilian deaths, that's a genocide. And Coleman said it's not 30,000, actually. That's the numbers Hamas gives. Israel says 13,000 soldiers were killed. And so if you were to take those two numbers, then you're looking at something like 17,000 civilian deaths to 13,000 soldiers killed, which is actually a better ratio. It's a stupid way. It's an unfortunate way of saying things, but it's a better ratio than the United States has in their campaigns with Afghanistan and Iraq.
Are they considering military-age men soldiers? Because I think the United States was doing that for a while.
Under Barack Obama, they started doing that. Like when the civilian death toll was getting too high, Obama was just like, if they're fighting age males, then they're not civilians. And they started blowing them up.
Yeah, that's like
too many of them.
I'd be concerned for those numbers. I mean,
well, either way, there's an interesting point brought up by Coleman in that if Hamas is allowed to operate the way they do, then they'll never stop.
Yeah.
It will literally never stop. And he's making the point that Hamas wants Israel to keep doing what they're doing so they can then go to the world and say, help, help, you have to stop them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like Hamas wants to have, like Hamas, every single innocent person that dies is good for Hamas. So Hamas doesn't have any problem with innocent people dying. Like, that's why they took hostages, and that's why they have hostages, because their religion says if they die and Allah says that they're a martyr, then they go right to heaven. So it's no big deal. It's no problem for people to die. That's cool. It's fine because they go right to heaven. That's the whole scope of it. And people that say, oh, that's not really what they think, or like people that apologize for that type of ideology or that like those kind of religious beliefs, like that's what they say. That's exactly how they look at it. So they don't care about innocent people. They don't care about innocent people dying. That is good for them because, one, those people go to heaven. Two, the international community says, oh, look at how bad the people of Gaza are being treated because there's all these innocent people dying, and they come down on the Israelis. That is a win-win for Hamas. So when you're fighting someone that has incentive to have innocent people die, like not just doesn't care, but incentive, you're going to end up with terrible numbers of innocent deaths because they're not actually trying to help the people get out of the way. They're inhibiting, like Hamas is actually inhibiting people from getting out of the way sometimes. And a lot of the people that are in Gaza don't really have a negative opinion of Hamas. I'm sure there's some, but why
do you think that?
Because there were polls and like 77% of Gazans approve of Hamas
Recently too. The elections were won in the 2000s, and Hamas won, becoming the official government. And then and then what the left says is, yeah, but there's no actual elections now. It's like they do polls, and everyone's like they're in support of it.
Sorry to interrupt you, Phil. My testosterone's flowing from all this working out. But I'm interested. So what was it like? Just a poll of 1,000 people though, and then they were like, that proves that everyone supports Hamas.
I have no idea.
That's a big statement.
Listen, Hamas was elected in like 2005. Now, granted, the first thing that Hamas did is said, we're not having any more elections. So like that sucks for the people of Gaza. But at the same time, if there were elections, it is highly likely that Hamas would win again. Like nobody wants to touch the people of Gaza because if the people of Gaza go to Egypt, they're going to undermine the government of Egypt. If the people of Gaza go to Jordan, they're going to undermine the government of Jordan. Like there are a lot of people that are revolutionaries, or at least have that revolutionary mindset, that say we're going to take over the government so that way we're in control in Gaza. That's just the way that it is.
They say like history rhymes, but it doesn't necessarily repeat. And this is like it's this group of people that are being persecuted. Well, you could argue this, and they have nowhere to go. This is the Jews.
Part of the reason they don't have anywhere to go is because they try to overthrow everywhere they go. There was a boatload of Palestinians in Jordan, and they were trying to overthrow the king of Jordan, so he booted them. Same thing in Kuwait. There was a boatload of Palestinians in Kuwait. They started messing with the government, so the Kuwaitis booted them. Like that stuff has happened too.
Did the king of England threw the Jews out of England at one point, and I think it was because they were meddling in the politics. I'll look into that so I can bring more info.
That's
a while
also
ago.
Before any of us were born.
It was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
But the Jews have been like exiled from countries over the millennia for reasons, and I've always thought it was just severely racist and stupid. I didn't know why. I've never really looked into exactly what they did or who they were.
But then he started listening to those Hitler speeches.
Right.
That AI Hitler speech is crazy.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.